End line by Anthony Ford. Prologue. Good Friday, 10:06 p.m. Father James Douglas now knew that his paranoia had justification. His rotund, cherub-like face was drained of color, to resemble some pallid, contorted mask of panic. Small and grossly overweight, he had always looked angelic, trustworthy, with the palest of blue eyes. Not now. Those eyes at this moment were haunted, and he the hunted. Trembling and panting heavily, he glanced all around as he stumbled through the downpour and barged along the deserted pavement. Sweat and rainfall stung his face, and his double chin wobbled as fear froze his thoughts, and his heart thumped to deafen any coherent understanding his mind tried to make. He had never known the horror of being terrorized and helpless. Now he knew. He was the prey, he was quarry, now he was the victim. His heart continued, "Tha-thump, tha-thump, tha-thump." Just like the big bass drum of a Salvation Army band. How symbolic, considering the large shadow who pursued him through the darkness and rain wore the uniform and peaked cap of that humble, God-fearing group. But it was the rhythmical rattle of the donation tin, together with the chilling hoarse whispering of Father James, which stole through his pounding heart to scream out that salvation was not what his tormentor promised. Death was on his heels, and he knew it. He was no longer a priest. He had retired. Forced retirement was the term, to be precise. He was laicized and not allowed to serve in the priesthood. Now James Douglas, ex-con and registered paedophile, was labelled Offender No. 12,685. The sexual predator of underage boys in Westerfield Catholic Boys' School all those years ago. Since then he had been housed in specialist accommodation. For his own protection, he heard. He never believed it until tonight. For this night would be his last as a living, breathing member of the human race. For in 4 minutes he would be dead. As he turned another corner, he looked over, and his pursuer was closing. He had gained on him, and having raced over the road to the opposite side, was now almost level, and he knew that in seconds he would overtake him, close in, cut him off. Then he burst down the alley behind and into the shadows where the streetlights failed to penetrate, and realized he was somehow following a trail, and with every step was stumbling into a predesignated trap. But again his thoughts betrayed him. Like a rush of blind amnesia, he couldn't think logically, just a panic of stumbling and staggering as he barged forever on. The building site ahead was a spanking new development of residential apartments which branched off from the alley to form a mumble-jumble of scaffolding, stairwells, brick walls and skips, crammed with every kind of site rubbish. He turned and looked behind, then staggered along the alleyway. This was his only hope, he thought. Maybe he could lose his pursuer if he disappeared through the maze of unfinished corridors and doorways and stairwells, which must escape onto a street of inhabitants. Even at this late hour, in this small seaside town, there must be someone, anyone, surely. He stumbled into the semi-darkness where a few yards ahead and high above, an enormous crucifix of wooden beams hung from chains swinging and creaking in the wind, and underneath, barely visible in the downpour, was a curtain of fishing lines 5 rows deep, hanging like Spanish moss in some Louisiana swamp. He barged forward and pushed aside the fine wire when he felt the first jabs of sharp steel penetrate his clothing, pierce his skin and dig into his flesh. Barbed fishing hooks were attached to the lines which swung back and forth in the wind and rain. Soon he was ensnared. As he staggered and grappled, some now pierced his hands and face, tugging at his lips and eyelids. As he struggled to pull free, flesh tore with them. He continued to stagger forward, and the sudden agony of pierced genitals sent the pain surging to new heights, and he screamed. Being overweight and 67 years of age, he fell forward onto his knees, and the steel hooks dug in further and tore through his skin like a rusted knife ripping through old fabric. He screamed again through blinding pain as the shadowy figure slowly approached from behind. For a second the person observed him, relishing the moment, then turned and unravelled a chain from the scaffolding alongside. Slowly the huge wooden cross swung down to hang just above the concrete. Suddenly the blade of a butterfly knife glinted, and with one swipe he was cut free from the entangled wires. The razor-sharp edge sliced the wires above his head, and he slammed to the cobbles of the alleyway. Suddenly a noose was slung around his neck, then pulled tight, and he screamed and pleaded as he was dragged toward the crucifix. 8:06 p.m., 4 hours earlier. These rotate every 5 seconds.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?